everyone.
Good day, everyone. I am your teacher in TLE 7, Mrs. Jocelyn N. Payumo. You can call me Ma'am Josh. For today's topic, we were going to discuss basic tools and materials in embroidery, different embroidery stitches, and proper use of embroidery tools. Let us first define what is embroidery. Embroidery is the ornamentation of textiles and other materials with needlework for personal use and decoration, not only for home but for offices as well. The term embroidery is an English word derived from an Old French embroiders, meaning edge and border. Development of embroidery in the Philippines. Embroidery was introduced into the Orient by the Netherlands in 15th century. It was brought by the Spaniard into the Philippines, where it has made a wonderful growth, and work done it rivals the best work done in Switzerland, a country noted for an exquisite embroidery. Embroidery reaches its highest development during the Middle Ages. The nuns in the convents were the first to make articles with embroidery work during their leisure time. Since then, it became so popular that women started to enjoy it, creating their own design. In the beginning, embroiderers were done by hand, but since the advent of technology and invention of sewing machine, people are now engaged in the machine embroidery. Today, because of the fast growth of the industry, elegance of design, fineness of workmanship, Filipino exported articles with embroidery work. Embroidery work is best achieved if correct tools and materials are to be used. Now, let's discuss the basic tools and materials used in embroidery. Tools are referred to a small handy device instrument in sewing. These are the basic tools used in embroidery. So let's discuss. Number 1. Tape measure is a measuring tool used to measure more than 1 foot or distance of materials. 2. Gauge. It is used to measure short distances. Number 3. Thimbles are made for metal or plastic to protect the middle finger and pushes the needle while doing embroidery work. This comes in sizes 6 to 12, small to large. Number 4. Embroidery hoop, or what we call stiletto, made of wood, bone metals, and plastics used to make eyelets in the fabric to be embroidered. It is also used to keep the fabric stretched while embroidery stitches are applied on a design. Needle threader. It is used for easy threading, especially for those with poor eyesight. Embroidery scissor. It is a small, sharp, pointed, good fine work used for trimming scallops, clipping threads, and cutting large eyelets. 7. Sewing box. It is used to keep together the embroidery tools and materials. Next, pounds. Pounds is a fine powder used in transferring design by pricking method. Pin cushion, a place for pins and needles. Watercolor brush, used for transferring the design using pricking and pouncing method. Embroidery needle. This is the most important tools in embroidery. It is a short piece of steel with a fine point at one end and a little opening or eye at the other. The kind of embroidery work to do and the kind of thread to use are two things to be considered in choosing a needle. Needles should always have a fine tip so that they can easily move in and out of the fabric. Do not use needle with bend, without a point, or rusty. This can affect the regularity and neatness of work. Protect your needle by storing them in the needle case, to sharpen needles or make pins last longer by rubbing them with an abrasive material such as sandpaper or heavy wool. Keep in mind that pins or needles are one of the most inexpensive notion used. Simple care and knowing when to discard them are the key. It is recommended to discard your needle after 8 hours of use, usually when thread or fiber start breaking and you feel it pulling on your fabric instead of gliding to it. Here are the examples of needles that can be used in embroidery. Number 1 is the crewel. Crewel has sizes 1 to 10, are sharp pointed, medium length with large eye for easy threading. They are used for most standard embroidery stitchery. Chenille. Chenille sizes 13 to 26 are also sharp-pointed needles, but they are thicker and longer and have larger eyes. They are the type of needles appropriate for embroidery that is worked with heavier yarns. Last, tapestry needle is from sizes 13 to 26. They are similar in size to chenille but are blunt rather than sharp. This makes them best of threading and counting embroidery for the needle point as well. Now, let's proceed to the materials in embroidery. So, materials are supplies that are consumed and replaced from the time of the from time to time in finishing a project. Okay. So there are two materials that can be used in embroidery, fabric and thread. So now let's discuss fabric. Fabric are sometimes referred to as cloth, which are of great variety and they differ in materials, weight, weave, design, color, and finish. There are 3 types of fabric according to their weave. There are common weave, even weave, basket weave. When we say common weave, it includes most tightly woven fabric with a relatively smooth surface like linen, wool, and cotton. They are best used for articles with decorative stitches. Even weave are intended for hardanger embroidery since the number of thread per square inch is same for both warp and woof. Number 3, basket weave is commonly used by the beginners and rami linen by those who have been used to this embroidery. It supplies guidelines for cross-stitch, smocking, having evenly spaced pattern like gingham cloth and polka dots. These are the examples of a fabric with different weave. The common weave, even weave, and the basket weave. Now, the next materials is the thread. Thread is available in various types. They differ in term, texture, fiber, content, number of strands, and colors. Thread are usually coded in number and color names. They can be bought in skeins, balls, or spool. The color of the thread should suit the color of the texture of the design and the fabric to be embroidered. These are the examples of thread that can be used in embroidery. Since we are already through discussing about the basic tools and materials in embroidery, now let's proceed to embroidery stitches. Embroidery, number 1 is the back stitch. Back stitch is the most often used to outline a design. This stitch also forms a baseline for other embroidery stitches. Next is the bullion stitch, a single detached stitch that is used for filling in a design area. Row of bullion stitch may also be used to outline a design. It recommended that the use of needle with a small eye for easy pulling. Next is the chain stitch, one of the more popular stitches used for outlining. When work in close row, chain stitch make good stitches for filling the design area. Next is the cross stitch. Cross stitch formed by crossing two arms and may be used for outlining as borders or to fill in the entire area. Next, feather stitch. A stitch with a loop and stitches evenly worked on both left and right side of the design. Next is the fishbone stitch, a kind of filling stitch which is ideal for making leaves or feather. It is required as to divide the pattern into two and each side is filled alternately given in a plated effect in the center, thus ideal to make loop stitch, a heavy decorative stitch and can be experimented with threads for various colors and over borders. Close layers of this stitch can create wonderful effect on a pattern. Next, running stitch, considered being the easiest stitch for outlining. Satin stitch, a solid filling stitch that is used to cover a design area with long straight stitches worked very close together. Split stitch, done use quite thick thread such as wool where it was used as an outlining stitch or a filling stitch. Seed stitch, also known as a rice grain stitch. Stitch uses simple straight stitches in a single direction to fill in pattern. It has shorter stitches above the fabric and longer stitches on the reverse side. They remind of a strawberry seed, probably which inspired its name. Stem stitch. Basically, an outline stitch is usually used for flower stem and outline. It can only use as filling row of stem stitch work closely together with a shape until it filled completely. And that's all. That is our topic for today. Those are the different stitches that can be used in making an embroidery article. Thank you for listening. Hope that you understand our lesson and God bless.